How's it, guys? This is Davey FPL and welcome back to the live stream at Deadline with Davey. This week we're going to be talking about everything Game Week 3 related. We're cutting the intro short. We're not going to have a long intro because we've got lots to discuss. Sorry for 30 minutes only for this live stream, but unfortunately the voice is sounding a little bit weak today, so I don't want to put too much strain on it, so that's why it's only 30 minutes this week. I also think it's going to be quite good because I don't think it's going to be that many repetitive questions, so hopefully the reduced time kind of increases the questions answered here. We're going to be absolutely rattling off these questions. So thanks to those of you who have already joined. Don't forget to like the stream if you want to help the stream with the YouTube algorithm. YouTube algorithm loves those likes and comments, so I would appreciate that from you guys. But otherwise, the Davey FPL team is looking a little bit changed from the one in the team selection, not in terms of the transfers, but just in terms of the captaincy. Currently on De Bruyne for captaincy. I don't know how to feel about this because throughout the whole week I had Werner captain, and now I've changed it this morning to De Bruyne, and those choices usually don't work out. But I'll explain the thinking behind this a little bit more when we go into captaincy. If you guys managed to miss the team selection, which hopefully you didn't, we did do not two free transfers, one free transfer and one -4 hit. We took out our boy Gucci and we brought in Podence. And then we also ended up taking out Aubameyang to De Bruyne. Pretty happy with that move. Saint Maximum to Podence. I'm just hoping that over the next couple game weeks, mainly these next 5 game weeks, hopefully Podence can manage to keep that spot, as then I think he's going to be pay quite dividend over Saint Maximum, who didn't look that great, to be honest, at the start of the season. So now we can go on to captaincy because we've spoken about the transfers. So the reason why I'm going for De Bruyne over Timo Werner for captaincy. So Timo Werner 100% has the better fixture. I'm not really buying into the whole Leicester being that weak without Ndidi debate, but I do think still with that De Bruyne is a better option than Timo Werner. I don't know for sure if Timo Werner is going to start at striker or centre forward this week. I think the form of Tammy Abraham in that EFL Cup, I think he's going to be starting at that striker position, and then maybe Timo Werner as a winger. And I really don't like Timo Werner as a winger. I haven't watched him much in the Bundesliga, to be fair, but I just don't really have a good experience with strikers starting off at wing positions. I mean, he could get points. I'm expecting him to get a point, at least the goal against West Brom. But I think with De Bruyne, just that midfield kind of role, extra points for goals, and then also he's on penalties, just takes it a little bit more in his favour. Werner could be on penalties as well. But that's just kind of a risk I'm taking. If you are captaining Timo Werner, I'm quite jealous of you, to be honest, because I think you guys have more courage than I do. But I'm simply going for Kevin De Bruyne, as I think it's a little bit of a safer option. So the first questions I'm seeing here is everyone is spamming Jimenez captain. So, I mean, if you want to go for Raul Jimenez, that's kind of a captain I didn't really expect. I think this week, there's so many different captaincy options you can go for. You can go for Werner, you can go for De Bruyne, you can go for Sterling, you can go for Mane, you can go for Salah. As you say, you could even go for Raul Jimenez. I don't know if I would go for Raul Jimenez. I just think that game might be a little bit closer than people are expecting. And I think the kind of ceiling for him is a little bit lower than the other players. And I think if you want to go for very differential in Game Week 3, you could go for him. But I think I might be looking at more Raul Jimenez next game week when he plays Fulham. Okay, so apparently Podence missed training, which is an excellent start to the game week. Well, I kind of hope that if Podence is injured, he doesn't start, then we can just have Kyle Walker-Peters. As I said, this move is not a one game week move, guys. It's going to be a multiple game week move. And I mean, Saint Maximum, there's no kind of guarantee that he's going to start anyway. It's a little bit annoying because we took the -4, but at the end of the day, I mean, I made that transfer because of the price rises. So yeah, apparently Podence is injured. Like Trey saying, Davey, you hungover, just got a bug out. None of that. I've just kind of my voice. I think over this week I've used it too much, and that's why it's a little bit croaky. So apologies if it is sounding a little bit bad, but it might just sound a little bit more deeper, which is probably better. So as also someone saying they Kane for captaincy. I mean, you could even go for a Spurs asset, a Son or a Kane for captaincy. This week is literally, you can't predict who's going to be scoring the highest goals. What I would suggest is look at your team. Think who's the best option. If you want to go safety, maybe go for Liverpool or City. But if you want to go more differential, you could consider someone like Spurs. But it's a very situational captaincy this week. You have to look at your own side. If you're on a wild card, it just makes things a lot more harder because you kind of could bring in anyone and captain them. I will say I'm going to touch on Sterling. If you do own Sterling, unless it is a wild card, then you can change them in and out. But if you are an owner of Sterling, I think that you probably should be captaining him, because if you've brought in Sterling, I don't know why you wouldn't have captained him if that wasn't in your kind of mindset. How's it, G-Bell? Thanks for joining in. Is Barnes good against City? Barnes is not the best option against City. I think no real attacker is that good against City. But with the way Leicester are playing, I can't see them getting a draw or a win unless they punt that ball forward to Barnes and hope that he just kind of runs in behind the City defense. So I'm comfortable playing Barnes. But the thing with Harvey Barnes is I'm expecting him to do quite well in the next two. And I just kind of have to play him with the injury situation that we were in. Captain Greenwood. So I think also saw someone say something about Martial. So Martial, I'm giving him one more game week. This week is kind of going to be the test of if I keep Martial or Timo Werner. If Werner blanks against West Brom, it's going to be absolute carnage in those transfers out. I can promise you that. Whereas with Martial, I think the owners might be a little more patient. But either of these two are going to make their way out for Raul Jimenez next game week. So that's kind of the decision I've already made. So Raul Jimenez will be coming in next game week. Obviously, if De Bruyne, Mane, Barnes, or Podence gets a massive injury and they're out for a month, then I'll have to transfer them out. But currently, the plan is to take Martial or Timo Werner out for Raul Jimenez because those fixtures are just a little bit too hard to ignore. And especially if United don't end up doing well against Brighton, I kind of have no faith with them against Tottenham, Chelsea, and Newcastle. If Timo Werner blanks, I can also take him out. That'll give me some more money to play, but I'm very comfortable with the transfers for next game week. Also, the other thing, I'm playing Taylor over Walker-Peters. I'm pretty sure that's going to come up in a couple of the questions in the chat. I just favor the home side here. I trust the Burnley defense a little bit more than the Southampton defense. It's not like the Southampton defense conceded 4 goals to Son last week, and that could quite easily be a 4 goals for Chris Wood or something. Will Foden be a good pick, Os Ryan? I really like Foden with the current injury situation there. The thing with Foden that you must just kind of know is that he's not going to start every game over the season, but when he does start, he's pretty much going to probably get an attacking return. So I do think he's worth that 6.5 budget. I saw someone on Twitter do kind of a prediction where they said, okay, if Foden starts 20 games, I'm guaranteeing 15 assists or goals, and that should equal this amount of points. So I do think he's a good value pick, especially if you're on a wild card, then I would look at him. Probably the move to do was if you had St. Maximum was to take St. Maximum to Foden. I just went for Podence because at the current moment there was no injury news, but apparently now he's missed training. So that's going to be a great start to the game week. Captain De Bruyne or Calvert-Lewin. I probably wouldn't go for Calvert-Lewin this week. Crystal Palace, they've been defending quite well recently, so I definitely think that would be a De Bruyne captain, Dan. John saying, how's it? Thoughts on the Werner captain? So if you're going to be captaining Werner, John, I'm going to be very jealous of you. I just don't really have the courage to do it. I think he might be pushed out wide a little bit today with Tammy Abraham slotting in, or even Kai Havertz slotting in at that centre forward position. And I don't really like when my striker plays on the wing. But I still think he'll bag a goal against West Brom. I just think that De Bruyne might do a little bit better. Kirtan with 40 rupees saying, which two amongst Souček, Davies, or Taylor? I would go for Davies and Taylor in that case. Podence might be injured, so yes, we've seen that. A lot of people are saying that he missed training, which isn't too great, but hopefully he can manage to train today and then play the fixture. Captain Son, Werner, or Mane. So in your case, I think it'll probably be between, actually all three of those are really good options, William. To be honest, I think that I still would lean maybe a little bit more towards Timo Werner in your case. I just think Son against Newcastle, while he still could do well, I think that Newcastle are kind of, they're always going to be parking the bus against the bigger side, so it might be a little bit more tough for Spurs. And then with Sadio Mane, I mean, if people are going for Salah, you could also go for Mane. I mean, if Salah's a good captaincy option, that equally makes Mane a good captaincy option. Just because it is a home fixture doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to be a better Salah fixture. So I think for me personally, it would be between Werner and Mane. Both of those are quite differential, I feel, though. William, so I probably would go for Werner in your case. Hey Davey, James Rodriguez plus Lamptey or Adams plus Digne, considering long-term picks. So if you're considering long-term picks, I probably would go for James Rodriguez and Lamptey, just because I think over the upcoming fixtures in the long-term, James Rodriguez is going to be quite a good option. And I'm saying TAA and Vinagre or Robertson and Saiz or Cody. So with Vinagre, he's not guaranteed to always start, but I think over the next couple he will because of that injury to Marcel. I always favor TAA over Robertson, so I probably would go for the first option there. A triple up City. So if I was on a wild card, this is what I would do if I was on a wild card. I would probably not have a Liverpool midfielder. so I wouldn't have Salah or Mane, and I would go for Sterling and De Bruyne. Why I would do that at the start of the game week, I probably wouldn't have said that, but since Jesus is injured for about a month, I do think that Sterling and De Bruyne are basically nailed to play. And I mean, if you look at their next couple of fixtures, I can honestly see myself captaining a De Bruyne for the majority of these. Whereas with a Salah or Mane, I don't think I'd be captaining them against Aston Villa. I don't think I'd be captaining them against Everton. Sheffield United, hopefully by then, this guy here, Ramsdale, has sorted his defense out, because then maybe we won't be captaining him. Otherwise, that'll probably be the captain for game week 6 against a very shoddy Sheffield United defense. But if I was wildcarding, I would have the De Bruyne. I would probably have De Bruyne, Sterling, and Foden instead of Podence. That would be kind of what I would do. Which is a lot different to my team, so maybe I should have wildcarded. How's it, Devon? If you had Salah, would you captain over KDB? I probably would still go with KDB. I just have a feeling that Arsenal are going to park the bus in this game. I still think Liverpool will win it, hopefully, touch wood. But I think that KDB is a better option than Salah this week for captaincy. Where will Sterling play against Leicester? So I really can't get in the mind of Pep Guardiola. I mean, if I could manage to predict his rotation, I would be absolutely banging it at FPL. But I think it's probably going to be between Sterling or Foden at that centre forward position. So I think maybe you could look at it maybe like a 50% chance that Sterling's going to be starting as that false 9. Mohammed saying, Davey, what's your balance after you change 2 players? So if you're asking my balance, if you're asking my overall points, this will go down to 104. But if you're talking about my team value, it's 1.00.1. So it's not great. I'm just in the profit here, but I still have 0.5 in the bank. Werner captain saying Alexander. So I think it's between probably Werner and KDB for me. I've just gone for KDB for a little bit of safety. I just have some precautions about Werner this week, but I definitely think if you're one of the players that captains someone on fixture, you have to go with kind of Werner. Gideon saying captain Sterling or KDB. If you own Sterling and KDB, I would captain Sterling, because I don't understand why you have Sterling if you're not going to captain him. It's just one of the reasons why I kind of, if you're on wildcard, maybe it changes a little bit. But I think if you own Sterling, I mean, the upside to Sterling is so much better than KDB. It's owned by like 43% of people, where I think Sterling is under 5% currently. The Bad Cab saying, thank you for the £2 donation, saying, let's hope that Martial does well. Scared of the other strikers. So probably the only striker I'm scared of is, firstly, Danny Ings, because I took him out, but then also Calvert-Lewin. If Calvert-Lewin bangs, I think I have to bring him in next game week. Hopefully Martial does well. Hopefully the whole of United does well, because currently I think me as a Liverpool fan has more faith in United than most United fans do, which is never kind of a good sign. So Optimus Prime say, can't seem to find Podence on the pictures. Maybe one of the couple of knocks Nuno talked about. So that is true. Apparently he is injured currently, or missed training at least, which is a little bit annoying, because hopefully Wolves aren't the type of team that in their press conferences they say, yeah, we have a couple of knocks, but then they don't announce anyone. So maybe this was a one game week kind of thing. But I mean, hopefully in the upcoming game weeks, their press conferences are a little bit more concrete. Bamford for Jimenez. So I wouldn't do Bamford this week. Actually, no, I would do Bamford this week. Sorry, I thought that Leeds were playing Fulham. I was in game week 2. So if you can do Bamford to Raul Jimenez, I mean, what a move. That's such an upgrade in my opinion. Werner captain over KDB, so you can go for either of them. As I've said pretty much throughout the whole stream, these two are my captaincy options for my own team. So any of them two are going to do well. I just think that De Bruyne currently in my own mind is my captaincy option, because I just think that Werner might be pushed out wide a little bit. Blues FPL saying, is it worth to drop tier A, Reece James, Foden for Robbo, Taylor, James? I wouldn't do that move. It depends on what move you're doing, because I would think that the first selection is a lot better than the second selection. So Blues, if you bringing in tier A, Reece James and Foden, I can understand it, but I definitely wouldn't be losing those three. What to do with Havertz? So if you do own Havertz, I would keep him this week. I think he's definitely going to play, and if he plays at that centre forward position, which some newspapers are rumoring, but the newspapers usually don't get it right. But if he does play that centre forward position, I mean, what a play to own against West Brom. So I definitely would keep Havertz for this game week. Can you show the wild card you would go for now? can I show the wild card that I would go for now? So I quickly can probably do a wild card draft. Actually, I think I did. Casper, just go watch the just go watch my wildcard video. I made a video this week on what I would do, but then I probably would look at Reece James. I would look at bringing in Reece James, and I probably would downgrade Salah to Sterling. That's probably what I would do. I have the same team and 0.2 in the bank, so maybe you missed some price rises. That's a little bit unfortunate if you did, but at least you still could afford the moves. Why captain De Bruyne over Werner? So I think it's not to do with De Bruyne, it's to do with Werner. I just think that Werner, a lot of the rumored lineups from the newspapers say that Abraham is going to start at that centre forward position or striker position, whatever you call it, and then Werner's going to be on the left, which I'm a little bit worried about. I never like when my striker starts on the left, so I'm just going for a more safety option here. I do expect Werner to get a goal, but I'm just kind of hoping that De Bruyne does better. There's so many captaincy options this game week that, it's going to be really impossible to kind of predict. As I said, if you are the type of player that captains on fixtures, I would go for Werner. What's the plan if Podence is out? I'd assume next transfer is Martial to Jimenez. Does Podence injury change it? So no, Podence is not a one game week transfer. I made this transfer with 5 fixtures in mind here. So that's why I did it. And if Podence is injured, hopefully it's not long term. I would think that would probably be a little bit of a short term injury because Nuno classified it as a knock, inverted commas. So that's generally might be just a game missing, and then I can have him for the next. If he misses out this game week, not the end of the world. Hopefully Walker Peters comes on, and that Burnley Southampton game's a 0-0. Hello Davey, Kane or KDB for captain? That's a really tough one. KDB is probably the safer option, but Kane's the more differential. I personally would probably go for KDB. I just think that Newcastle are going to park the bench, and it'll be interesting to see how kind of Spurs adjust to that because they played against a team with quite a high line last game week. Is Werner a better captaincy option than Son? I think that on paper, I definitely would think that Werner's a better captaincy option than Son. Son's got the better form, but in terms of the fixture of Newcastle versus West Bromwich Albion, I think that I would go for Werner instead of Son in that case. Salah or KDB captain, I personally favor KDB. I think that Mane and Salah are on the same page. So if I was considering a Mane captain or a Salah captain, they would be equal. So I still think that De Bruyne is a better captain than both of them. But Salah might get 5 penalties and then I'm going to be looking like an absolute fool again. But I think before the game week, if we had to predict, I think KDB is probably the better captain to go for. Davey, should I start Vinagre if I own him? 100%. I would 100% start Vinagre if you do own him. I think that he will be starting. The person who might not start, as Mark is saying, is Ben Davies. If Ben Davies doesn't start, I don't expect him to come on. So I think that in that case, you might as well just play him against a Newcastle that I don't think are going to be too attacking this game week. He might not play, but at the end of the day, it's not that bad. Shay Saba saying Jesus is injured, so he is injured. It was actually quite nice of him to announce his injury though, because there was a lot of speculation about if it was true or not, and then he kind of came out by himself on Twitter and said, "I'll come back stronger." So that's pretty good. Johan saying, do you think Gucci could play this weekend? I think he could. I think Steve Bruce said that he wouldn't make the midweek fixture, but he will be ready for the weekend fixture. So I think that he will play. Whether he's a good option against Spurs, I don't know. But if you have to play him, I think that he will play. Are you not worried about Podence not playing every game with Semedo coming in and Traore playing right wing? So I'm not worried about him playing it every game because apparently he's injured. But with Semedo, we kind of can't predict the lineup that they're going to do. Wolves seem to play a 5 at the back, so then it depends if they're going to play a 2 in middle or how they're going to play the wingers. Sometimes they play with 2 up front or they play a 3 up front. I do think Traore will be in that lineup, so what I kind of hope is that they play a 3 up front with Raul Jimenez, Traore on the right, and then Podence on the left. I think that'll probably be the best scenario for us Podence owners. Fernandes captain, I don't think I'd be captaining a Man United option, but if you have faith in them to rebound after that Crystal Palace game, then you could. But I think I would currently stick with maybe a Liverpool, City, or a Chelsea option. You could also go for a Spurs option, but I don't think I'll be going for a United option this game week. Start Mitchell or Ayling. I would start Ayling. As far as I know, I don't think the Leeds game is that hard. And I mean, if you have a Leeds defender, I don't know why you're not starting them, because their fixtures at the start were terrible. So you pretty much want to play them whenever they have a good fixture. And I mean, Sheffield United is a great fixture for a Leeds defender. So if you have a Leeds defender, 100% I would also be starting them. What do you think about triple captaining Werner? I don't think I would be using the triple captain this game week. You always could. I mean, that's the thing with FPL is, I mean, you could just ask me and you could just go with your own opinion anyway. But maybe if it was West Bromwich Albion at home, maybe I would look at that. But I just think there's too many captaincy options this game week. It actually could be a good triple captaincy week because I think the captaincy is going to be quite split. But I think I would hold that triple captaincy chip for now. Play Mitchell or Barnes. I would probably play Barnes. I always favor, when it's a defender and an attacker with a tough fixture, I always favor the attacker because their upside is just a lot more. You're usually guaranteeing that the defender is going to not have a clean sheet, so that way the defender has a bigger upside. Wilson to Kane or Jimenez for a -4 hit, or save 4 million for next week. I don't think necessarily, unless you're going to be captaining Kane or Jimenez, I don't think that I would go for that -4. You can just kind of do that move after the deadline, and then you don't necessarily have to take a hit for that. Jackson Pay, put your non-players on the pitch for a laugh to get auto-subbed, and then suddenly Pusuma's red card gets rescinded an hour before, and then he plays. I know what you're saying there. It could be quite a laugh, but I'll probably just stick with my own lineup here. I have a feeling Mitrovic will be the highest scorer in the team. I really hope so, because a lot of the wildcarders are going for Martinez. So I would like if Mitrovic does quite well, because he does look like he's on the chopping block, because I don't know how much I trust Fulham. So if he does manage to bang, I would be quite happy. I just want to refresh the team here to make sure that everything's set. And then unless we make some early changes, maybe we go and captain Alexander-Arnold. Why are you captaining KDB? I think KDB is a good option because Man City have looked so strong. And then also with Timo Werner, he was my other captaincy option. And I just have a little bit of doubts about Timo Werner's position in the formation. And that's why it's kind of led me away from Timo Werner. But I still think Werner and De Bruyne are my best two options in this squad. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to captain Werner. Captain Son or KDB, I always am going to lean towards KDB because I just think that Newcastle are going to park the bus. Son could still do well against them, but I just seen the form that KDB is in, and I mean, that's why I've gone for him. I'm on a wild card and want a long-term keeper. Who do I go for, Martinez or Ryan or McCarthy? If I was wildcarding, I would go for Martinez because with Ryan and McCarthy, you can own Walker-Peters and you can also own Lamptey. So I wouldn't want to double up on the Brighton defense. So what I would do is I would probably have Martinez and then I would have Lamptey. Do you think Davies will start for Spurs? I think that you might as well just start him because if he doesn't start in the starting lineup, he won't come on. That's something that probably could give you some reassurance. Kyle Walker-Peters or Ayling, 100% go for Ayling. I mean, it's against Sheffield United. I don't think Sheffield United have scored a goal in the Prem this season. So that's kind of a no-brainer for me. If you have a Leeds defender, start them. Should I get Lamptey for Baldock next week? It depends on what their fixture is next week. So Brighton have United but then they have Everton. I mean, Everton have been high-flying, but I do think that Brighton have been defensively better. So you could do that move. I don't know how much I would spend on my defender transfers, but if you're comfortable with that, go for it. Miguel saying, if you are on a wild card and have Sterling and KDB, would you risk captaining Sterling? So I probably would risk it because he's got a lesser ownership, and if you have Sterling in your squad, I pretty much assume that you want to captain him. I know De Bruyne is also a good captaincy, but I do think it's worth the risk of going for Sterling instead. But thanks for the €5. I really do appreciate it. What do you think of Harvey Barnes to Foden for a -4 hit? I don't really like it because with Harvey Barnes, you're getting a guaranteed player, and he has two lovely fixtures against West Ham and Aston Villa coming up. And I mean, you could even consider the Arsenal game to be quite good. I know they lost against them in the Carabao Cup, but then he also has Leeds. So I think you're basically taking out a player that's not nailed, but maybe has a high ceiling for a player that has a guaranteed starting 11 whose stats have been really good. So I would probably keep Barnes in your case. KDB also got a knock midweek, so he got a little bit of a head injury, maybe a little bit of a concussion, but apparently he was pictured in training. So if he did have a knock, he wouldn't have been training, because with a concussion, you meant to kind of don't have any activity, no lights for about a week. So I mean, he was out on the field playing, so I can kind of assume that he's going to be fine. And the thing with KDB is, if he does have a knock and it is a concussion, no ways will he come off the bench. So you just make sure your vice captain's also a good vice captain. Zaha or Barnes, I would probably lean a little bit more towards Zaha. How's it on Mane to Son free transfer, says John. So I don't know how I feel about that one. I think if you have a plan, you want to take Mane down to Son and then maybe upgrade Mitrovic to a Jimenez next game week, I can understand it. But in terms of a one game week punt, I still think that Mane can do well against Arsenal, so I probably wouldn't go for that. 5 minutes to deadline as well. Actually, 4 minutes as of recording this video. So please get your lineups announced, guys, and your benches sorted out, and everyone is nice and symmetrical. Maybe what we'll do is we'll make our guys nice and symmetrical here. It's just so that all the blues on this side, and then we take Alexander-Arnold off, and then we put him there. And I mean, that looks better now. We got red and blue. I mean, we probably should swap these around, but that doesn't matter too much. Human saying this lacquer. Justin or Castagne. I think I'm pronouncing that right, but I probably would go for I'll probably go for Justin because of how cheap he is, and I think that he's going to be playing for the next couple of game weeks. Martial to Werner for a -4 hit, taking into account the Chelsea next fixture. So, James, I would only do the -4 hit if you're going to be captaining Timo Werner. If you're going to be captaining Timo Werner, then I would do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't, because a -4 hit, Martial could still do well. So, unless you're captaining Timo Werner, I wouldn't do it. Pepe FPL saying hype. Hype for the final 3 minutes to the deadline. Is Podence injured, says Jonathan. So apparently he missed training. And in the press conferences, Nuno said that they had a couple of players with knocks. So I don't assume it's going to be a long-term injury, but if he missed training, maybe he could do training today, and then he could still be fine. Salah or Mane, I would go for Salah. Vincent saying any electricity out is not so far. Is reserving wildcard for international break a good idea? So, Vincent, it could be a good idea because there's in an international break, it's pretty much 2 weeks. So, a lot of price rises could happen more than a 1 week kind of gap. So, if in terms of that, it could be quite good. And it just kind of depends on your team. If you really don't like your team going into the international break, then I would wildcard. But otherwise, you could always just keep it. KDB or Werner for captain, I've gone for KDB, just a little bit of a safer option for me. I still think Timo Werner will do well. So if you want to captain Timo Werner, it's a perfectly fine situation. It's kind of a 50-50 for me. The coin's just flipped on the light blue side of my team. Please don't talk me out of Jimenez captain. I'm not trying to talk you out of Jimenez captain. You could go for him. If you come to me and you say you want to captain this player, it shows that you've had a plan. So I'm never going to be taking a player or talking out of a plan that you have. Salah or Werner for vice captain. I don't think there's too much in that one. I've gone for Werner because I would have captained him if I didn't have KDB. But Salah is also a good vice captaincy option. That's not the biggest decision in the world, I don't think. KDB to Sterling now that Jesus is out. Unless you're on a wild card, I would do that. Otherwise, if it's a free transfer, I wouldn't be doing KDB to Sterling, unfortunately. Start Shaw or Vinagre. I would probably go for Vinagre in that case. I think that Brighton attack is looking a little bit better than the West Ham attack currently. Ryan saying you're the bomb, Davey. I appreciate it. Mane or Werner. If you're talking about captaincy, I probably would lean a little bit more towards Werner. Davies or Coleman. I would probably go for Davies in your case. I think the Newcastle fixture is better than the Crystal Palace away game. Who would you get if Martial didn't perform? So if Martial didn't perform, I would get Raul Jimenez next game week. Trossard or Barnes this game week, I think you have to go for Trossard. Deadline over. It's 12 o'clock my time. So unfortunately, guys, that is time. So hopefully you did get your teams in. And thank you for joining this deadline stream. I think it's been quite a good one. I feel like the 30 minutes is more explosive and more, we answer questions quicker. But let me know in the comments what you guys kind of prefer. If you prefer the hour version or if you prefer a 30-minute kind of quick fire session. Triple captain Kane against Newcastle. Thoughts, please. So you can't have thoughts now because he could still do very well. And I mean, that could be a triple captain that pays off quite well because I think he's quite a differential captain. So a lot of people are saying 30 minutes is way better. Davey, with Henderson's injury, is it time to bring in Curtis Jones after his great performances midweek? So with Curtis Jones, because it's Henderson's injury, I don't think it's going to be a like-for-like swap, but Curtis Jones, I definitely think will be getting some minutes. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be more from a standpoint of coming off the bench. So I probably wouldn't be looking at Curtis Jones currently, Zander, but I do appreciate the comment. So everyone's saying 30 minutes, and we have Lul saying with an F in chat. I don't know why you're saying F in chat. Hopefully this game week's good. 1 hour if we have multiple exciting fixtures to discuss. Else 30 minutes is fine. So I do appreciate the feedback. I'll be going through kind of the comments. Someone's saying they still haven't updated the website. Okay, so the website is updating now, unfortunately. So that's going to signal the end of the stream, guys. Thanks a lot for joining. I really have appreciated you guys joining in for this kind of 30-minute quickfire session. And as I usually say, hopefully Game Week 3 is absolutely sensational and the green arrows are in your favor. I'll be checking you guys over on Twitter throughout the game week, and then elsewise in my videos next week, I will be discussing how the team got on in Game Week 3. I'll be checking you guys later. This has been Davey FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.